Welcome to Season 3 of Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robby Dodd. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. C.H. Siddons.
Season 3.
Season 3 is here.
The junior year.
That's right. It is the junior year.
Yeah. We got over the sophomore slump.
Yeah.
Which wasn't really a slump. It was really
it was a good year.
high point. It was a pinnacle.
It was a good year. Who knew 10th grade could be so wonderful?
Right?
Yep. And Mr. Peter Crable.
Hey,
Mr.
man.
Krabs, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. Glad to be back.
Good to see you. Folks, we're glad you're joining us again for our third season. I can't believe we're coming back. The band hasn't broken up. We're still together.
Indeed.
And we're going to keep going strong. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Ed's Not Dead PC. You can also visit our website at edsnotdead.com. And as always, we're brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. Mm-hmm. Boys, it's good to be back.
Yeah.
All right, Crable already told me not too much time.
Curtail your summer talk.
Summer stories.
Summer talk, blah, blah.
Summer stock.
All right, let's start with you, Case. How was the summer?
It was great. I do want to mention that our photographs on the website are amazing.
On point.
Bruna Photography.
.com. Bruna Henevese outdid herself.
So good.
Yeah, she's an amazing photographer. Tell us about your very pregnant wife.
She is pregs.
She is pregnant.
Jeez.
Casey's going to be a dad, Mr. Graves.
It's scary.
It's so exciting.
Do you all take the phrase "we are pregnant" or do you say "she's pregnant"?
If I ever hear you say "we are pregnant,"
I don't say "we are pregnant."
The show will cease.
We are having a baby.
Do people say that?
You are not pregnant.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a millennial thing.
It's not a millennial
yes,
thing, is it? I've never those
heard,
words have never come.
I've never heard a Gen
I've had
Xer
people
say.
come up to me and say, "So when are you all due?" And I'm like, "Well, she's due on November 7th."
That's hysterical.
I think it takes them aback a little bit.
That's so weird.
It is
people
so
say that,
but it's also weird to me, and I know that you're all sports fans.
Yeah, we are.
And when you say
unlike you,
we're having a tough season. It's like, we're having a tough season?
Yeah, no.
Where's your ring?
That's a sports talk radio thing too. When radio hosts that clearly root for a specific team, when they say "we," it really upsets people.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a football team that I like, and I think I probably do say "we" sometimes.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Anyway, how's your bride? How's she feeling?
She's doing great.
Yep. Baby's due when?
Oh, supposedly November 7th,
Okay.
but I think it's going to be earlier.
Okay.
Might
More
be a
importantly,
Halloween baby.
Casey, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
You know what?
It must be hard for you that your wife is pregnant.
It's tough. It's tough. I have to do
a
lot.
No. Okay, I'm sorry.
She's making me. I had to tie her
Challenging.
shoes today.
Really? That's
Ridiculous.
That's okay. You better.
I'm just kidding. I'm
You
kidding.
better
I'm
be
kidding.
careful.
That was all
I'm
sarcasm.
kidding. I'm
Come
kidding.
on,
We're doing a bit.
I'm
kidding.
We're totally going to freak you out because we're going to focus on a story called "We Have Ruined Childhood" by Kim Brooks tonight.
But not you. You're doing great.
No, listen. I'm already a #1 father of the year.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think you're going to be good.
I'm excited.
Yeah. You got your baby camera set up.
Working on it.
Okay,
Working on it.
So
So
you're going to
I
have
went
the
with
feed on your phone.
I know. So here's the thing.
That's so appalling.
I did that the first one. I had the
I went
the Wi-Fi camera.
I bucked the
Don't
trend.
do it.
I
Don't
did
do
the
it.
audio right.
Okay.
And then I was convinced to do the video.
So you're going to do the video.
Yeah.
So you can watch.
You'll
the
use
little,
it for a little bit, and then
Yeah,
you'll be
just
like,
a little
this,
bit.
You're gonna be like, this
First
is not
one,
healthy.
just to alleviate some anxiety.
Remember the title of the article: "We have ruined childhood."
Yeah.
Listen, I wonder if I'm going to ruin it. I'm going to ruin it right on day one.
Old-fashioned way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First stop.
I will say, on a positive note, so I've gotten quite a few comments this summer about the amount of gray hair that I now have.
Have you really?
Yeah, like 4 people. I was like, what?
Are
Really?
you sensitive about it?
No, it was just kind of like within a week, 4 people said something to me, so
Yeah.
it kind of struck me. But I attribute it all to children. But on the positive note, you don't have any hair.
That's
so you're good to go.
Yeah.
You'll look the same.
I had to take out the obligatory no hair comment in my speech to new educators in August.
No, you did.
Why?
Because the same group of VIPs was in the state.
They heard the joke already.
They did. I was like, they're
reuse
probably
it.
not going to remember it, but I don't want to do it again.
You can't. Yeah, don't overuse.
I gotta keep it close to the vest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. Well, we're very excited for you.
We are very excited
because we're gonna be full into season 3 when baby Siddons arrives.
That's right.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so we're gonna have to take.
And we're not going to accommodate him at all.
I was going to say there's absolutely
None.
yeah.
Yeah. We chose a date.
Listen,
This is the private sector.
That's
There
right.
is no paternity
You
leave.
think we have family medical leave in this company?
as per
we do not.
our LLC policy, our federal poster that we have not posted,
Well.
I have a right to FMLA.
I'm just telling you, pulp education is not going to
we bucked the trend.
cut you any slack.
That's right.
All right, Mr. Krabs. I saw you frequently at the pool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how hard you were working.
Very hard.
Yeah, but you had your 3 kids in tow at times.
Yeah.
How was your summer?
It was great.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did a lot of non-education stuff.
Did
I
a
don't, I don't understand these people that do education stuff all summer.
You didn't write any blogs?
Did not write any blogs. Tweeted very little.
I know, he hadn't tweeted in a month. He's got to get Ed's Not Dead PC going again.
Yeah, just did other stuff. It was great.
Did a nice Colorado hiking trip with your big bro?
Amazing hiking trip out near Leadville, Colorado. Just basically hiked from 8 in the morning till 6 at night every day. Every hike ended with a nice dip in an alpine lake that was
pretty sweet.
Probably about 38 degrees. It was very cold water, but it was incredible.
Bonded with your bro.
Yeah, very nice to spend some time with him.
Awesome.
So,
all right. My summer was melancholy.
yes.
My dad passed away in July, and he was 90, as you guys know.
Yep.
He was a great guy. But he did me a solid by waiting till the summer, so the school year was over. That sounds totally inappropriate, but I actually asked him if he would do that. And he, as a former educator, he hooked me up with his last thing, so I was able to spend a lot more time with him in July than I would have been able to if the school year was going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you guys for coming to the service. There was a big celebration of his life as a dad, but also his life as an educator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely learned a lot. Very nice ceremony. And so Al was a progressive thinker.
Yes, he was.
In a time when maybe progressive thinking wasn't always valued, even in progressive parts of the country.
Yep.
Someone who was willing to stand up for what was right against segregation, for inclusion and equality for all students. Again, even when everybody was not about that.
Yep.
In a time when busing was prevalent.
Yep.
In a time when desegregation had been court ordered but had not always been followed.
Yep.
By individual school districts
Listen
or
to
schools.
Crable, he's got it all figured out.
Yeah, I think I was supposed to let you say.
No,
some of
that's
that.
good. You're doing it. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed to hear some of the things he did.
Yeah.
And what else? I mean, is there more to add to the pastiche?
He always said that. I mean, my gosh, he was a principal at 27.
I was shocked to hear that. I was like,
and
God.
I mean that wouldn't happen today. Typically, maybe in some parts of the country it might happen, but certainly in urbanized settings, with the way leadership development has gotten so sophisticated in some systems, it would be tough to be a principal at 27. And he always said that he was kind of in the right place at the right time. It was the middle of the 20th century when he first became a teacher, and the baby boom was happening. So you figure he started teaching in 1953. That first crop of baby boomers were entering,
just coming in.
Yeah, just coming into school.
And he was elementary school.
He was an elementary school educator. Yeah, he thought he was going to be a secondary educator, but he opted for elementary school, and he worked at a really progressive elementary school in Silver Spring, right outside D.C., called Parkside. And as I said in my speech, Parkside was founded by a woman named C. Mabel Smith, who was a disciple of John Dewey at Columbia Teachers College. And kids got freedom cards at Parkside. You could earn your freedom card. Some people might say that Parkside was maybe socialist and at worst communist. But
it sounded a little bit that way.
Yeah, no, freedom cards. I don't know if that would go over well today, but it had a big influence. He was a student there, and then became the principal there. What was that noise?
I have no idea.
That was outstanding.
Sorry.
Anyway, so he just had this career that, like, it just aligned with all the big issues of 20th century public education.
He was two steps removed from John Dewey.
Yes, he was.
I mean, John Dewey is still
still
a paragon. 100 years later,
100
paragon
years
of
later.
education.
Yep.
The quotes,
Yep.
all the quotes you see are just like,
Yep.
yes,
Yeah.
that is what I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, John Dewey is the progressive educator.
Yeah.
And then, there was Sputnik in there, and he was an elementary science guy. That was kind of his love. Although at the celebration, you'll remember that a very renowned environmental educator accused him of not knowing anything about science, which was pretty funny. But he taught himself about elementary science, and that was kind of a burgeoning field at the time.
Right.
He was actually involved in separating social studies and science in the curriculum.
Okay.
Because at one time they were one and the same.
Wow.
And then the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Civil Rights Act, certainly Brown versus Board of Education, all those things really kind of impacted his career.
Yeah.
And then the culmination of it was really the desegregation in the 70s, which, it was funny. He was fading right after Harris's comments about Biden's stance on busing in Delaware.
Right.
And I wanted to have a conversation with him about it because that was just right in his wheelhouse in his time. And, I couldn't, but I'd be curious. It's so funny how these educational issues come back around.
Full circle.
That's probably what I'm going to miss the most with him is that I won't be able to come back to him with these kinds of things and get his insight on them. But anyway.
And I remember at some point we were talking and, I can't remember what the topic was, but it was about doing the right thing, and that in retrospect, like oftentimes, let's say you supported segregated schools or something like that, and I think your dad said something along the lines of, you don't need 30 years to change your mind. You can also 30 years ago have had the progressive stance or had the right-minded stance.
Yep.
It doesn't necessarily always have to happen way after the fact.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think from everything I heard, that was sort of your dad in a nutshell.
Yeah.
He had very strong values that he stood up for
Yes.
at the time when not everybody was for them.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that, I mean, he was the first to integrate a little league baseball team in Montgomery County.
Right.
And I think he was 27 years old, right about the time he became a principal when he did it. And he was the child of immigrants, and I've always kind of wondered where his beliefs and values about equality and equity and race came from. Because, I mean, it wasn't like his parents were, they weren't overly enlightened as struggling immigrant parents coming from England.
Right.
But somewhere, somehow, my mom might have had a significant influence on him also. She was from a more educated background. But those values and those beliefs were there, and he lived them out in his career.
Yeah.
And, I feel like he had a big influence on me, and, I kill you guys with his sayings all the time. So anyway, well, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about him.
Yeah.
What do you think his legacy will be?
I don't know. I mean, I would, I think his legacy, was that, I mean, he always rooted for the underdog. That was his thing. If he saw kids or communities that needed more, needed something different, needed a fair shake, then that's what he was about.
Yeah.
And I think that would be his legacy in education. I hope that would be his legacy in his kids and his grandkids.
Do you feel like that informed your work as a principal?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I didn't obviously have to deal with busing in the 1970s like he did, but, No Child Left Behind and the achievement gap and systemic institutionalized racism in schools and classrooms and teaching. I mean, all those things have been things that I've tried to confront. And so, and that just kind of came naturally. I feel like it had something to do with his influence on me.
Yeah.
So, and those things are still, those are things we talk about on the show all the time.
Yeah.
They haven't gone
Same
away.
topics, yeah.
Absolutely.
Some of it is in maybe less overt ways.
Oh yeah.
It's
Certainly.
there's a lot of undertones
Certainly.
that people can easily defend against.
Yeah. But when you bring up boundary studies or busing,
That's the thing.
those things are still, we've talked ad nauseum about the resegregation of public schools in the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny that there was that political will back then to do that, to bus. And when we had the author of what was the book?
Color of Law.
Color of Law on, he didn't really think busing was that great of a thing either.
No.
That's more of a Band-Aid
right.
approach.
Yeah, but it
worked.
But it worked.
Yeah.
He was for the outcome of what
Yes.
busing accomplished, not the act of busing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For as onerous as some people thought it was in the time, it made a big difference in a lot of kids' lives.
Yeah.
So anyway, So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. He'll come to me as we do this show many times in the future. All right. What else you got? Any show feedback?
Yeah, we got some good show feedback. We made a top 20 list.
That's right.
Mr. Craig, that's because of you, Mr. Craig.
Hey.
You're out there marketing.
That's
It's not
right.
dead.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, tell us real quick.
It's called Top 20 Educational Podcasts You Must Subscribe and Listen to Now.
And we were number 1 on that list, right?
We were on the list.
Okay.
It was in no particular order.
Yeah.
Okay. It
Yes.
wasn't?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
It wasn't. It wasn't a ranking.
Just generally.
I have to say, I saw us at 20, and I kind of was a little crestfallen. But now that you're saying it wasn't a ranking,
No. But yeah, and I corresponded with the guy a little bit afterwards. So it's via FeedSpot. So we'll put that in our show notes.
Yep.
Cool.
Check it out.
It'll
There's
be
some
there.
other included with some other good names on there as well.
Just shows you how much Ed's Not Dead rocks.
That's right.
That's right.
We do.
It's the best education podcast out there.
Yes, it is.
Our friend Phyllis Fagel had a recent article in the Washington Post, 7 ways parents and educators can improve kids' middle school experiences. Both C.H. Siddons and Dr. Robert Dodd were quoted as opposed to Mr. Crable,
I'm very happy for both of you that you were both quoted.
who has implemented Project
Sincerely
Success,
happy.
as he points out, longer than both you and me,
Hey.
and gets no love from anybody.
You know,
We love you, Mr. Crable.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and you're doing the good. You're doing the good.
you know,
work.
Mott the Hoople made all the young dudes popular.
Yeah.
David Bowie wrote it. But we all know David Bowie.
right.
You know, that's right.
Anyway, so congratulations to Phyllis on another great article on tweens, as she calls them.
I sent it to my parents.
Did you?
And they Facebooked it all over their friends.
Oh,
And they were
very nice.
Very excited.
So
I got
proud
a
of our
shout
son.
out in the WAPO.
That's right.
Fist bump. Nice job.
So I got a text from my high school history teacher.
And you're also in Phyllis's new book, Middle School Matters. Okay, you're not, but I am. So that's all that really matters.
See, aren't you happy for him, Casey?
I am very
Doesn't it
happy.
feel
I thought
good?
you were in there.
I haven't read through the whole thing yet, so
Phyllis gave Project Success some love.
you're in the index.
No, I am. Project Success is in the index.
And Robert W. Dodd.
Oh, I didn't look for my name.
Wow.
I'm in the index,
Oh,
really?
yeah.
That is sweet.
Famoso.
Okay. Thank you, Phyllis. And Phyllis, continue your awesome work on middle school. It is you are she's focused on middle school in a way that
the well-being
yeah,
of middle school children.
unlike
in general.
anybody else right
Yeah,
now, I
yeah.
think. I mean, she's really
She's definitely in the vanguard.
she is dialed in, and she's talking to people that really know a lot about tweens, early adolescence, and I like how she gets school in there. It's not just about psychosocial development. She's talking about education.
School's
also.
a part of it too.
Yep. So this show tonight, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about We Have Ruined Childhood by Kim Brooks. And then we're also going to have a famous C.H. Siddons quiz at the end of the show.
What?
I will tell you that I'll leave you with this before we go to the break, that I'm getting hammered that we're not doing Dear Betsy enough. So
we can do. She's not been in the news a lot recently. Well,
No.
I guess they've screwed over all those kids that went to fraudulent universities. But aside from that,
she has it. Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, it's been.
Yeah.
She's been.
She's too busy denying all the paperwork for the public school tuition reimbursements.
All right,
And
so
99% of
I
it.
envision her with like a giant rubber stamp, just being like, "Oh, God,
Another one?
boom,
Jeez. I have to deny all of
She
these?
she's the survivor, though.
She is.
is.
Yeah.
Man, I can't
Keep your head down. Stay out of the news.
Yep, I can't believe it. All right, folks, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to talk about how badly we've ruined childhood. We're so psyched you're back with us for season 3. Don't go away. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. Still here with Mr. Peter Crable.
Indeed,
and
I'm here.
Mr.
Don't sound so excited.
C.H. Siddons. I would be more excited if our equipment worked and I could hear myself in both ears. Mr. Crable didn't.
You're such a whiner.
He didn't get us
You want some cheese with that wine?
The dongle.
He didn't get us a new dongle this
As you
summer.
pointed out, I only had all summer to do it.
I know. Just like I had all summer to get Ed's Not Dead swag, which we'll talk about later in the show.
Yes.
T-shirts and mugs.
And stickers.
And stickers. Siddons loves the stickers.
He does love the sticks.
Especially when they're like the size of a penny. He gives them out to people.
Listen, at least I pulled the trigger and did it.
That's true.
Hey,
Okay.
look, you've got
I've gone done did it.
You've got nice skins on your computers.
I
Ed's
do
Not
not.
Dead skins. Those are from. I gave you one.
He got a new computer.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that new MacBook Pro.
Yeah, you know.
You big.
Listen,
You big.
I am the keystone of this podcast.
How many deals did you get on Amazon, Millennial Boy, to get that?
No, this is free. This is free, buddy.
You're such a
I
squeak.
got it from my
Boy.
mom. My mom gave it to me.
That's even worse.
Yeah, she wasn't using it. My mama.
That is a sweet.
Number
laptop.
2. Guess how many things I bought on Amazon Prime Day this year?
17.
0. Okay.
Had you had a history in the past?
No,
You
it
had?
doesn't appeal to me.
He's just pointing out that he's not Amazon Millennial Boy.
Yeah, and I don't subscribe to your silly stereotypes of my generation, the generation that will solve the problems that this country has been dealing with from the generations of yore.
You have to admit the millennials tend to be squeakers a little bit with the phones.
Yeah, well, we came of age.
I get so
a
Great Recession,
financial
man. Come on.
crisis.
Excuse me. Do you remember when the stock market crashed in 1987?
Oh,
I had
I
just
vividly
graduated from
remember
high
it,
school,
yeah.
and I don't hide
Does
every
not
penny under my
compare
freaking
to
bed.
the financial crisis that impacted our generation in 2007, 2008. Does
How-
not compare.
How old were you at 08, by the way?
I was 23.
Were you teaching? Had you done your first year of teaching?
I just started teaching.
Oh, so you had a job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
And then there was a hiring freeze 2 months later, so I made it in.
I was a principal.
I was lucky.
Yeah, you were lucky. You did get employed. Do you really think that the 08 that the Great Recession had that much of an impact on the outlook
We
of
did a
millennials?
freaking entire article on it, talking about how
I have no recollection.
I think it did. I think it did in terms of if not like jobs, but certainly we could talk about wage increases.
Wait, what? Huh?
Wage increases.
What about
is it a stymied wage
Yeah,
increases?
yeah, like wage increases, and then the ability to pay back student loan debt over a period of time, and the actual ability to actually get a job.
I agree. I will defer because I was much further along. I will say that half my 403B was wiped out. So I mean, yeah, but it didn't probably make me as cynical about life the system as it did for you guys. Speaking of cynicism and my generation, because Gen Xers are probably the biggest culprits in the next piece we're going to talk about, which is we have ruined childhood. For youngsters these days, an hour of free play is like a drop of water in the desert. Of course, they're miserable. This is by Kim Brooks in the New York Times. It's a piece that she wrote on how the raising of children in childhood has changed so significantly over the last generation. She starts out by saying a 2019 study published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that between 09 and 17, rates of depression rose by more than 60% among those ages 14 to 17 and 47% among those ages 12 to 13. So she goes on to talk about, is it screens? Is it social media? What's the culprit in the increase in suicide ideation, anxiety, and depression? And what she basically comes down on, fellas, is that it is child raising. It's parenting. And it's what parents are doing to kids that as the slice of the middle-class pie gets harder to get or get a piece of, that parents are increasingly over-scheduling, over-parenting, not letting their kids breathe. And she even cites that some of these psychosocial issues are even more pronounced during school months versus during the summer.
Right.
That kids don't really have a chance to be kids, and that it's having a profound impact on their mental health, their wellness, and on the family in general. So, you guys read it. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. And certainly as someone raising young kids now, it becomes more and more personal and relatable, where it's not just, okay, what are these kids that I'm seeing in schools, without really maybe knowing what's going on behind the scenes. And I think the one thing that stuck with me most was when she talks about how parenting was once seen as socially necessary labor benefiting the common good, but now is an isolated endeavor. So to me, it all really gets back to community. Toni Morrison passed away over the summer, and I looked for this quote and I couldn't find it. She had written some about single parenting, and I won't call it a defense of single parenting per se, but saying that single parenting is not the issue. And those that are being raised by single parents aren't at a deficit, because even those being raised by two parents, it's an almost impossible job to be everything for those kids. And then in days past, you had a community of people that looked out for children. So you didn't just look out for your kids, you looked out for other people's kids as well. And I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And I think that that's what it all gets back to for me about ruining childhood and the overscheduling of everything for kids, is that the problem is that when you don't have stuff scheduled for kids, there's nothing else. There's no other options. There's nobody else around. There's not a group. There's not a community of people that are available to play with your kid, to be around for your kid, to just let the kids be. So again, I think that's what it comes back to for me, is the sense of community and lack thereof.
Well, as a parent, as an expert on parenting in the room here,
just so you know, the best parents are the ones that haven't had kids yet, because you know everything.
That's right. No, I do think I was not overscheduled as a child, which I found, like, looking at some of the things that my wife had to do when she was growing up. I think she always had a sport, or every single season had something to do.
Well, it started with millennials.
I didn't have that. Like, I played one sport, and I tried track in another season. It just didn't resonate with me. I worked a job, and when I was younger than that, when I would get on my parents' nerves, all I can remember is they would tell me to draw.
Yeah.
And if that didn't work, then I was outside.
Yeah.
So leave the house, get out. And I didn't go far. I was just in my yard, and that was what I was told to do. I don't know.
This is but one example, but I recently read a biography on Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. He grew up, fairly affluent. His dad was kind of a big muckety-muck at Ford, I believe.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so he moved around some, but basically grew up completely alone, and got really into playing with and collecting, like, toy soldiers.
Yeah, he was playing with dolls and stuff too.
Toy soldiers.
No, I think there was a doll.
There might have been.
Yeah.
This didn't go into that, but a lot of the voices.
What's the doll? That's so random.
No, he used to put on skits with dolls. Dolls include toy soldiers.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the voices and the persona and the acting out that he did as a performer really gestated from his childhood.
Right.
From not having this and that and that and that and the other thing. Now, I think he was also probably lonely and a little bit, depressed.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that, as a comparison point where it's like, okay, kids can, when given the opportunity, can self-direct play.
Right.
They can do kid things. It's not like the kids today can't do those things. It's
right.
just about giving them the opportunity to do so.
I have cited a Annette LaRose book, Unequal Childhoods, before?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Unequal Childhoods, Class, Race, and Family Life. And so whenever I read this, I always wonder about parenting patterns in childhood across different groups and different cultures. Because, is she only talking about Caucasian children or affluent children? Is she talking about, we live in a diverse society now. Is she talking about kids raised in different socioeconomic strata or different or parents of different cultural backgrounds or races? Because Annette LaRose did this very interesting ethnographic study where she embedded herself with families of different classes. And her book was received. I think it's a great book, but it was, people definitely had different opinions on it. What she found was was that kids in both working class or working poor, both white and African American households, were raised remarkably the same. Mm-hmm. That there was very little difference in how they were raised based on race. What were similar, the parenting patterns were very similar, and the childhood was very similar. And she called it, the way she termed it in the book was a natural childhood, mm-hmm. which were there was much less supervision. Kids were allowed to go out and play and experience life outside of the house or wherever they lived in a way that Kim Brooks is saying kids don't. So whether it was going down to the playground or to the woods or wherever, that kids had a lot more freedom. It was much more natural.
Right.
But there were some other things that were maybe a little bit more unnerving or I think makes a difference in kids' lives. For example, she found that when a child said something to the parent, one of the things that she observed were that working poor parents had very few follow-up questions. There was less engagement. Mm-hmm. And then she found with both those, both with African American and working poor white families, when they came up against the system, like for example in a parent-teacher conference, they were typically less able to push on the system than affluent parents.
Right.
And she also found that African American and white parents of middle or upper middle class raised their kids remarkably the same, highly scheduled. Mm-hmm. Highly engaged in their lives, kind of micromanaging them. And what it taught those kids was that they knew how to advocate for themselves. So if they felt like they were getting shafted or they needed to push back on a principal or a counselor or a teacher, they knew how to do it.
Right.
And so I just think it's interesting because the natural childhood that Annette Lareau talks about is what Kim Brooks is saying is lost.
Right.
I wonder if it does exist still, but maybe it's a class thing. Annette Lareau found that's not necessarily a race or culture thing.
Well, I think it's also a really good example of how societal culture is developed, and I think once you kind of get inside the echo chamber, it becomes very hard to break out.
Yeah.
So the line she has here is at the same time that more is demanded of parents, childhood free time and self-directed activities have become taboo.
Yeah.
I'm like, says who? According to who?
Yeah.
At any point, anybody could break the mold and say, I'm not going to overschedule my kid.
Right.
My kids are going to be the one that have less stuff scheduled, more free time, more this, that, or whatever. Now you are bucking the trend for sure.
And you're trying to keep up with the neighbors.
Exactly. And there's something to be said for all that. But I do think we're kind of at a point where I'm not sure that there was some tacit understanding or agreement that like, yeah, let's all do this. This is the best way to raise our kids.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens. And then you have kids and then you find yourself in it.
Right.
And you're like,
But you don't recognize that the overscheduling, you as an adult might be overscheduled, so therefore you're overscheduling your own children, and then that just seems normal.
Exactly.
But in reality, there's enough research that says that's probably not healthy for kids.
and I do think
like us doing a podcast on a Saturday night, right?
Yeah, but I think it's
but we're adults, man.
But you're
And
shuttling
instead
kids.
of playing poker, we're doing a podcast.
You're going to piano, and then after piano, you're going to soccer. And then after soccer, you're going to.
It's brutal.
Right.
I'm caught in the thick of it right now as a parent, and we're guilty of it.
Yeah.
And I think the role a school plays is very important in terms of, especially as you get into middle school and high school, where we're asking kids to join clubs so that they become. We want them to feel a sense of belonging, but also
not to mention put a club on their
resume
on their app for college.
Right.
I mean, that's really important.
And the quote that stuck out to me was that the role of school stress and mental distress is backed up by data on the timing of suicide. The suicide rate for children is twice what it is for children during months when school is in session than when it's not in session. So, I mean, the implications are stark and real and terrifying. And, you know, I think we have, as school employees, we have a role to play in how we support kids to do that. And I think that comes down to not only administrators and teachers, but also counselors. So
well, I can tell you a time. I remember I started long enough ago in education when kindergarten was still for play. when
the fact that it isn't is mind-boggling.
I
to
know.
me.
But
mind-boggling.
My sister was a pre-K teacher.
Yeah.
She taught in a program that was equivalent of Head Start without the income requirements, and she always tells me the story that one of a great early childhood educator who just so happened to have a grandchild in her class when she was a young pre-K teacher came in her classroom one day to pick up her grandchildren who were 2 4-year-olds after school. And my sister just so happened to have some letters on a magnetic board. And she kind of very nicely scolded my sister and said, Jenny, what are you doing with those letters?
Yeah.
And from that point, that was probably 1993, maybe 92. By 10 years later, literacy in kindergarten, not to mention
was the thing.
Pre-K,
Yeah.
had taken off. Yeah. But I mean, and then so you look at that in the primary grades, and then what happened with secondary education. When I went to high school, I'm not even sure there were AP classes. And so you have AP, you have IB. The College Board now has a huge influence on high schools,
right?
And there's been this push that I think is a well intentioned, and the outcomes have been very positive for a lot of kids to get them into higher level rigorous courses.
Yeah.
I mean, that has benefited a lot of kids. But what we're also seeing here is that it's created the unanticipated, I guess, impacts have been stress and anxiety.
And the further up you get into schooling, you have less support in school for that social emotional piece. In middle school, the counselors are definitely more available to help with kids mitigating conflict and depression and issues like that. Right. As you get into high school, what are they focusing on?
And
they're focusing on.
Yeah, but Phyllis Fagel's telling us in her pieces that this is happening in middle school.
That's what I just want to make one point about is that what are they doing in high school? What are they focusing on?
Academics.
Well, scheduling.
Oh, scheduling.
Well, they're focusing on scheduling. A lot of high school counselors. That's what they have to focus on.
Okay, gotcha.
All day,
gotcha,
all year. And then if that's not that, it's college acceptance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I might argue a little.
I'm not. There's
scheduling
nuance.
takes up a certain part of the year, but not a lot of the year. College is a big deal,
right? So
and you're right. Helping kids pick courses
and
is a big deal.
the average of high school counselors to students is how many to 1?
800 to 1.
482 to 1.
Yeah.
And the recommendation is something like 250 to 1.
Yep.
And there's only 3 states that actually mandate that or have hit that ratio.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that I think this all stems back from us treating children like little adults and not treating them like children and allowing them to be children.
Right.
Exactly.
We push into younger ages adult things and adult schedules and adult important things when it's not necessarily developmentally appropriate. And I think back to season 1, and we interviewed Zaretta Hammond.
Yeah. Was that season 1?
Season 1, yeah.
Okay.
And her daughters, I believe one of them ended up at Harvard or something, she told us. But she would encourage them to not go to school on a day.
Yeah.
To go outside.
Yeah.
To go to a park.
Yep.
To go see something that they wanted to do for no purpose other than the enjoyment of the actual activity. Yeah. And that mentality is less and less and less prevalent, I think.
Yeah. I not to go back to my dad's service again, but I do want to read you that line from my childhood dear friend Chris O'Connor. He wrote a letter to me about my dad, and it was read at my dad's service, and it's got some good lines in it. It says, "All its dents and scratches notwithstanding, my childhood was a happy one in no small part because I grew up down the street from the Dodd family. We had just 4 or 5 channels on TV, and one of them didn't come in very well. So we learned how to throw a football, how zoysia grass could burn your knees, how to catch a crayfish, bait a hook, and what the dirt felt like between bare toes. I feel like I caught the tail end of a kind of childhood that isn't possible anymore. Some knucklehead would call CPS." I don't necessarily agree about the CPS part, but But I am grateful that we grew up in the 70s. It was kind of the last era of that natural childhood, at least. There was just very little parental supervision. Now, that came with some issues. There were certainly things that we were exposed to that we shouldn't have been exposed to because parents were in some ways checked out of parenting,
Right.
and then by the 80s, life really changed, and I don't think it's just not the same anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say, at the risk of
generations-
sounding like the old crank, I'm not saying that my childhood was any better than anybody else's.
And I don't think anybody is saying make it what it was or
Right.
it has to go back. I think we all accept the fact that times change and
Yep.
things change.
Yep.
Absolutely, of course. But at the same time, I do think it bears the conversation that we're having here about, okay, well, how does it affect our kids? And is it good for our kids? And then further, to the content of this podcast, what is the school's role in it?
Yep.
And is what schools do and are doing, benefiting the whole child? Or are we, myopically focused on things like academics or how many AP courses they take or other things that, while important, is not to the detriment of literally everything else.
But remember,
and there are things that schools can do that are comprehensive and focus on that. There was one school I worked at last year where they did something as simple as every teacher knew when everyone else is giving a test.
yeah.
They knew. So, like, I'm not going to give
Imagine
homework.
That. Imagine that a testing calendar.
What a simple thing, right? But seriously, like, I know that I'm not going to give a major assignment that day, or I know that my kids are coming in with this on their head. So, like, something as simple as that can go a long way for kids.
Yeah, well, I'll defend schools a little bit in that, this is kind of esoteric and existential, but schools are pressed from the outside externally by society, and they tend to react.
We have to fix everything.
They tend to react to what happens. I wish parents, and I see it all the time now that I have kids that are teenagers, and I said this to you guys before, but the parental need to control outcomes for their kids and not let things happen naturally is I see it as a problem. And then I also see the celebration of childhood. It gets to your point, Crabes, about not letting kids be kids, but the celebration of kids' successes, to me, sometimes is just a thinly veiled celebration of ourselves as adults.
What we've done, and how we've put our kids forward.
Correct.
To do things.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and that's a little bit appalling at times.
Yeah.
And I think that requires adults and parents to look at themselves. What are your intentions here? It's that old line: raise the kid you have, not the one you want. And I think it's natural to fall prey to that, but it obviously has consequences. So anyway, it's good piece, right, boys?
Yeah, it was really thought provoking. I liked it.
I really like it. Casey, you now
You're now even more of an expert on
I
parenting.
know.
You're about to
I'm
be
like,
a parent.
I'm at like a level 11 now.
So we're gonna watch what you do, and we're gonna judge and criticize you. Okay. All right.
Wait, hold on. There's one quote that I wanted to share that kind of made me laugh.
Okay, go ahead.
The quote was, "And so for many Americans, the nuclear family has become a lonely institution, and childhood, one long unpaid internship meant to secure a spot in a dwindling middle class."
Well, there you go. It's true.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking at that exact paragraph right there.
The
too.
long unpaid internship.
Like, oh, God.
Well, we worry that our kids are not gonna.
prepared.
That's the controlling of the outcomes.
Right.
We're
If you don't X, Y, Z at 13, 14, 15,
Correct.
then
Correct.
at 25 you will not.
Right.
Whatever.
Yep. You won't get into a good school. You won't.
And that
living.
anxiety from a parent transfers to the child.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. They feel,
Whether consciously or unconsciously.
they feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know my kids feel it when I get clenched about outcomes and about who and what they are and what they've accomplished. It's a natural part of parenting. Parenting is incredibly hard. So I don't want to throw too many bombs at parents. Because I've watched you try to break up your two boys at the pool. It's not easy, right?
And that's in public. Where I'm like, okay, everybody be cool.
I know. Everybody's watching and judging.
Everybody's judging me right now. I'm such a calm parent. Look at me.
All right, don't go away. When we come back, Mr. Sids has a all-time quiz for us.
Oh, man. So many good things.
We're back in it. Thanks, folks. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead, to our third segment of the show. Mr. Siddons just sprung a new article or topic on us that
He did.
we need to talk about because it has to do with his quiz.
Well, you
Right?
know,
Is
got to
that
do
right?
everything I ask you to do.
I know.
I'm a squeaky wheel.
Public school fees are soaring in America, Mr. Siddons, right?
That's right.
All right, so let's see. The big picture in a short article in Axios based on a longer piece in the Wall Street Journal shows that school districts across the country brought in $6 billion in 2017 from student fees. That is $6 billion dollars. Activity costs and more, up 20% from 2002, 17 years ago, the Wall Street Journal found. The number of schools charging fees also went up. There's a typo, from 61% to 71%, so 10 percentage points. In Texas, schools cannot charge fees for textbooks. In Indiana, schools can attach a price tag to books. By the way, who uses books anymore? Minnesota and Indiana permit districts to pursue legal action to collect fees that go unpaid. Mr. Siddons, what do you make of fees? I know we were accusing you earlier in the show of being somewhat of a squeaker, so this might upset you some.
I think it's indicative of a bigger picture of our
tell us
system.
what it is. What is
because a lot of states are cutting back on their
I
public
knew
funding
you were
for
gonna get
education, and school districts have to step up somehow and be like, well, we need to find a way around this. I know the ACLU is pursuing litigation across the country to stop this from happening, especially in California. My brother and sister-in-law got a list of things that they needed to buy for my niece who's going into third grade, which is wild. And it ranges from things from pencils to a bunch of scissors to tissues. And it's just, it's odd considering that public education is supposed to be gratis, supposed to be free. And these fees, although, for the middle class and upper echelons of our society is fine, it puts folks in a bad position for paying for their child's education.
But school supply lists at the elementary level have been around forever. I mean, when I was an elementary teacher, I sent home a school supply list. Now, I didn't hold parents responsible for buying those things, and I had a lot of those things in my classroom.
We had recommended lists.
They were
at
recommended
middle
lists.
schools. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but these are in some sense, you're saying mandatory. They have to buy them.
I don't know. I don't know that they say that the letter that my brother got home, I don't know if it was mandatory, but it was like, are you going to be that? We're not going to let our kid show up without anything to contribute, I suppose.
Well, this also says a price tag to books. So I wonder,
Yeah.
is that you lose a book, you have to pay for it? Or is that, hey, you're in this class, you need to buy this book?
That's a good
you
question.
can't buy this book?
You're not in this class.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or good luck.
It's a good question.
That's known as an obligation.
I've heard of those before.
Yes.
Yeah. There was also something over the summer about schools going after families for unpaid lunch bills.
I saw that.
Yes.
That's despicable.
I would not like to be in that position as a school administrator,
Yeah.
going after families to collect their food fees.
Despicable.
Yeah. Is that despicable?
Yeah. A kid can't afford lunch?
But what if they can?
If they're on free and reduced meals, you would assume that they can't afford it.
Right, but then that means that they're getting free and reduced meals.
Right. So they shouldn't be charged for something they can't afford.
Yeah, but kids going to rack up debt at schools.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they can't pay for it.
Yeah, but weren't they like considering putting parents in jail for it?
I'd heard that.
I hadn't heard that.
Whatever it was like very draconian. It was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
ridiculous.
don't support.
You don't support jail time?
No, I do not. I mean,
It's on the books.
I'm older school than you guys, but I mean, schools have always had fees. I mean, you have to pay for field trips. You have to now schools. Most schools, I would hope, at least the schools I've worked in, go out of their way to
accommodate
and help
work.
kids in those situations. But the textbooks thing, I mean, textbooks are incredibly expensive.
Yeah, they are.
So I'm just, I mean, at the high school, this is probably the high school level because that's
What about
that's
cat
what they're
cadavers? How much do you think cat cadavers cost?
using. The last one I bought was about $25. How much?
Close.
How much?
$35.
Oh, they've gone up a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Inflation. Jeez.
Yeah. So they use cat cadavers. What happened? What happened to fetal pigs?
What happened to freeze-dried
Frogs.
Frogs.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't do.
I dissected in my 7th grade science class a chicken wing from local supermarket. That was the only thing I dissected in my
They just
science
bought
career.
like a 40-pack for you guys.
It was like literally in the package, like the foam.
Yeah.
I mean, to her credit, Miss Johnson didn't have the supplies, so she went out and bought, I guess, chicken wings herself.
Yeah.
That was one of my big units when I taught 4th grade.
Chicken wings?
No, was the dissection of owl pellets.
Oh, those are gross.
I heard.
They're
I
dying.
just
Those are
came across
disgusting.
what those are like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they're a great
Yeah.
way for kids to learn.
Yeah, they're really neat.
I mean, you get owl pellets from typically barred owls, and I mean they're basically it's a pellet full of feathers and whatever the owl, whatever the owl throws up. But you can, I mean, kids can get like a whole skeleton of a vole from there.
Yeah.
And it's the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Yep. Owl pellets. Anyway.
And meanwhile, I was dissecting chicken wings from Quinn's Market.
Was that actually, did the teacher have you do that?
Yeah.
Is that all they could afford in your town?
Apparently. Because I never dissected anything else.
Well, frogs were big when were frogs still around when you
Frogs
were in
were
school,
big,
Krebs?
yeah. Oh, I did dissect a frog in anatomy.
All right, well, come
Okay,
on then.
well, there you go.
Yeah, but it was like we didn't dissect them. I don't think. I think they came as sort of like pre-flayed.
Oh no, we had to flay them. We had to flay them. I remember breaking the arm. It was gross.
No, didn't do that.
It was unfortunate.
I remember the fetal pig that I dissected in Big Bio as a freshman. I got a C in that class. It was really hard.
I would imagine
that fetal pig, they had the umbilical cord was still attached.
Holy moly!
geez,
It was really fairly gross.
Gross.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of feelings out there about about this topic.
I'm sure.
I'm not trying to come across as insensitive. I mean, that's why I got out of biology.
Yeah.
Plus the C. What's the quiz?
Let's
Mr.
do a
Sid?
quiz.
All right,
Are there
ready?
Are there going to be questions about school fees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Multiple choice or
So we have first quiz. First one is about school fees.
first quiz?
First quiz. Second one is about the wonderful 2020 presidential race that's taking up a lot of the oxygen in the room. All right, ready?
He's going to get us in trouble on Twitter.
I'm not going to do that.
with
I'm
the
not going to do that.
politics.
There will not be any tweets.
Is it bipartisan? Are we doing both Republicans and Democrats?
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes.
All right. Go
All
ahead.
right, quiz.
All right. So Huntington Bank went through a classroom supply list from a variety of schools and put together an index of the cost of the items. Parents of elementary school students can expect to shell out how many dollars per year?
186.
This is on average, of course.
Of course.
And then we'll go to middle school and we'll go to high school.
I'll say 300.
In the schools that require parents to pay for these things, elementary, $642.
A lot of money.
How about middle school?
812.
I'll go lower. I'll say 650.
$918.
All right. So
And then high schoolers.
Crable and I are 1-to-1 here. High school, I'll say 1,200.
905.
$1284.
Yeah, baby.
Jeez.
That's a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have, in high schools, you have, I guess that includes things like your senior dues, if you're
Yep.
a senior.
Okay.
Photos.
Photos.
It was rigged against me. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, well, I have been a principal at all three levels. Look at that.
I'm so smart.
That's so good.
All right. Next one. A middle-class family who has a child this year can expect to spend how many dollars on average raising the child until the age of 18?
Oh my god, $1 billion.
So from birth to 18,
Yep.
does that account for inflation?
Adjusted for projected inflation.
Got it.
Very
Oh,
good.
that affects my calculations.
It does. I was doing those in my head. You go first.
I don't
Grace.
even want to know because I might run away.
I'm going to say doesn't include college, right?
No,
I don't.
18.
No, it does not
I'm
include college.
assuming public education, so it's not private school.
Right. Middle class family.
Middle class family. And that includes food and everything else?
I suppose.
I got a number.
All right, you go.
1.3 million.
Whoa.
Okay. Okay,
That's
maybe that's a little off.
That's a little high. I was going to say 275,000.
300,000.
That is, they cost so
some
much
skin,
more than
baby.
that.
Which is up from how much in 1960?
1960.
In today's dollars.
$85,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 75.
198,560.
Okay, so still pretty steep
Yeah.
in 1960.
A big
Kids only cost $325,000.
A big chunk of that cost is education, childcare, the second largest expense for middle and high income families, and the third largest for low income families. All right, next part of the quiz.
These questions
We're shifting.
The questions are so freaking boring.
Oh man,
Our listeners are
cold sauce.
totally asleep.
We'll just cut it out.
It's a good quiz. It's a good
We'll
quiz.
just, no, you don't have to. I don't need any. I don't need your reinforcement, your
Validation.
validation.
After I've insulted you.
All right. So our next Democratic debate's coming up at the end of October, near the end of October. How many candidates?
10.
12.
10. All right. So
2-2. Oh, wait. Was that a question?
and let's switch gears to the other side of the aisle. How many people are running for president on the Republican side?
3.
3.
Who?
Joe Walsh, Donald Trump, and that other guy.
I almost thought you meant Joe Walsh from like the guitarist.
Joe Walsh just entered, right?
Yes,
I can't remember the other guy either.
He's Bill Weld.
that's correct.
Bill
Weld.
Weld from Massachusetts.
That's right, that's right.
Yes.
And
Crable knows his politics.
switching back to the left.
Yep.
Who are the folks that dropped out?
Well, I don't like these questions.
Why?
This is a freaking education podcast.
Yeah, they're going to be running the education department.
Your education department, Robby.
That's right.
Who dropped out?
Who dropped out?
Klobuchar. Did I say her name
No, the Gillibrand
Gillibrand. Okay.
and the other guy.
There's 4 more.
Schultz is not running. Does that count?
He dropped out.
So
Or
I
he
get-
would not run. That's correct. You were correct.
Do I get credit
You were
for
part
that?
of that list, yes.
Okay. So Schultz is not running.
The guy from Montana, the Bullock.
Nope.
No,
He's still running.
all the guys that were
Jay Inslee.
Jay Inslee's out.
Oh, that's good, Crabes.
Uh,
All the guys that were interchangeable up there.
John Delaney.
No, unfortunately.
He's still in.
See,
Sorry. Sorry. Oh,
No editorial comments.
sorry.
Who else? Who
Okay,
was
come
there?
on, give us the rest.
Hickenlooper.
Oh, that's right.
He's out.
Okay.
And Seth Moulton.
I
know who that is.
Who is that guy?
And we said Gillibrand, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
I said-
Seth Moulton
I said-
was a
I said
representative from
Klobuchar.
Yeah.
Is
No,
that-
she's
is
still
that
in.
running. She's from
still in.
Minnesota.
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 Oh, yeah.
And there was another guy who dropped out who was a representative from California. I can't remember his
Couldn't
name.
tell you.
He wore an orange tie all the time. Anyway, that was my very exciting quiz.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, then. All right. Nothing like starting season 3 with a bang.
Jeez.
That was good, Mr. Sid.
Don't take it back.
It was
now
it was
you're making
good.
me uncomfortable.
It was really good. I know you've had a very
Jeez.
nervous laugh the whole show.
Oh, it makes me so
Whenever
uncomfortable.
I've said you've gone like,
Good Lord.
Well, we do have a big announcement that's exciting
okay,
in regards to Ed's Not Dead swag.
all right.
Yeah, so we're going to make a bunch of swag. We're going to buy it right now when we end this segment. But we're going to get, should I say T-shirts? Can we trust you to get T-shirts made,
I
Robby?
have a good T-shirt guy.
Robbie's got a T-shirt guy. So
Nice, soft Gildon T-shirts.
Gilded beefy tees.
Gildon.
I'm the only one that calls it Gildon.
We're going to have some nice tees.
Yes.
And if we don't, it's Robbie's fault.
Ed's not dead.
Yeah, they're going to say Ed's Not Dead.
How
If
can
not,
I-
if not, it'll be white tees with permanent marker on it.
How can our listeners get them?
I don't know. We haven't decided yet. Something about
Okay.
promoting us on social media.
And
You have to pay
and-
attention to our Twitter account.
And mugs.
Yeah, we're going to get some mugs
Okay.
and a whole crap load of stickers.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's going to be nice.
That's going to be exciting. We gotta get people some Ed's Not Dead swag.
I don't think I told you guys this. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show. So I reached out to AMLE because I thought we could go to their conference.
Emily.
AMLE,
Yeah.
And
Association
the door was open.
for middle level
I
education.
know we were going to do a live.
Yeah.
We were going to do. We were going to interview people at the big conference.
Yeah, in Nashville this year.
And
I've never been in Nashville.
And I had to ruin it because I'll be salmon fishing.
Yeah,
And my baby was being born.
So both of you ruined it. Thanks for doing that. But we
There's that nervous laugh again.
Really?
Come on, dude.
Why do you call me out? That's so uncomfortable.
Are you sweating?
No, now I am because
Yeah.
you're making me feel uncomfortable about it. I want to go home.
Do your armpits smell?
Jeez.
All right. go
Anyway,
ahead.
so last summer wrote an article about easing the transition to middle school for the February 2020 issue of AMLE magazine. And so I just wanted to double check. So we are going to be one of the feature stories in the February 2020 AMLE
Go,
magazine.
Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the article.
No, you didn't.
Do I get any credit at all?
Yes.
Okay,
I put
good.
your name on there, but when they ask for headshots, I'm only sending mine.
That's your headshot was the best of the
That's
three of us.
very good.
It was very good.
Yes.
That is very exciting.
It is
And,
exciting.
and I'm not even. Did I even read it?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, but I'd like to read it.
It's very good.
It is good.
Yes.
How many words was it?
A lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Couple
Did
thousand.
you guys have quotes from anybody that we
No.
know?
No.
Ginger Berry,
I included no quotes whatsoever.
Jim Patterson.
No.
All right, that's February 2020.
Yes.
A few months away.
Yes. So
All right.
every episode between now and then, I'm going to talk about
Yeah,
it
you
incessantly.
need to plug that all
I
the
will.
time. Do we have a 1T, a Jim Patterson update?
I texted him just the other day.
Yeah.
We're hopefully meeting up with him.
Are we going to call him soon?
No.
No, he never picks up.
Okay. How about any friends of the show like Mr. Kaz? What's he up to on social media?
He's doing his thing.
Okay.
I did have a friend of mine who was in.
I'm afraid to say anything.
I'm not
going
to him anymore.
I'm afraid to say anything because I'll get
Dry
get
well.
criticized.
I'll look at you, Mr.
I'm good.
Krabs.
I'm gonna stay in my lane.
Okay.
I did have a friend who recently got back from China. He was in China for 2 years, and saw him the other night. And he was like, he said something about the podcast, and he's like, I've listened to every single episode. My buddy John Custer, and I was like, no, you haven't. Why are you lying? He's like, I love podcasts. I've listened to every single one. I was like, what? Seriously? I go, why? Because he has nothing to do with education, but he likes the show.
That's really
He
nice.
learns. He said he learned something about things that he knows nothing about,
Yeah.
and he likes that.
Yeah, my buddy Bruce Levin says the same thing.
Yeah.
He says he's learned so much about education
Yeah.
from us, and he's not in the business, and he just...
There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Hearts and minds.
Thanks to John.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing. Did you do a fantasy draft this year?
I did, yeah,
you
just
got a
last
team?
week. Yeah.
Who's your starting QB?
It's a 2-quarterback league.
Okay.
Carson Wentz and Lamar Jackson.
Oh, those are good picks, Mr.
Yes, they are.
Krabs. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
I
I got a pretty good team this year, so we'll see.
You
Yeah.
psyched? How many person league?
What is it? 10.
10 teams?
10 teams. Yeah.
PPR?
Half.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I took Melvin Gordon,
Oh, that's
who currently doesn't really have a team, but I took him way late.
Okay,
He
well,
was just
that's
sitting
good.
there. And I took AJ Green,
nice.
who may no longer have a foot in
Yeah.
a month or two, but that's
Yeah.
okay. You got to take
Okay.
a flyer on some people.
Good. Who's your defense?
Chicago.
Oh, that's a good one.
The Bears.
You got a good team.
I do have a good team.
Nice job,
Yeah.
Mr. Siddons.
I have Henry Rose as my starting quarterback, and
He's good at the football. Huh?
yeah, John Piscoponi is my head of coaching staff.
Okay,
He's head of personnel.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
player management.
Yeah.
Who's your kicker?
Doug Flutie.
Cutie Flutie.
Flutie Flakes.
All right, so Mr. Krabs, you'll have to keep us updated as the season goes on,
I will.
because by the time this show airs, we will be a week into the NFL season.
We will.
Right?
Yes.
All right, folks. As always, you can find us at Ed's Not Dead PC on Twitter. Check out our website, edsnotdead.com. We're also on Facebook, Ed's Not Dead. So all three of those things. You can get caught up on our website on the amazing blog posts that Mr. Crable and Mr. Siddons have done consistently without my help over the last couple of years. Right, guys?
You know it.
And we're going to have a teacher tips episode come out soon as well.
Yep.
To get your year started off. We didn't really even last year. I think the first 2 seasons we kind of brought in both seasons with a celebration of the start of school, which we really didn't do this season.
We started a little later this
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
so I think most people are pretty well into the swing of things.
School's going.
It's going, yeah.
So all you teachers, support staff, principals, educators out there, we hope you have a great school year.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to episode 1 of season 3. We appreciate your listening. Spread the word about Ed's Not Dead, and we'll catch you soon. Say goodbye, fellas.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks.